Something is happening in America, something quiet but enormous. Millions of people are working harder than ever, yet falling further behind.
I work 40 plus hours a week and I'm still broke.
How is it legal that I'm basically making minimum wage in Pennsylvania? It's $7.25, by the way.
There is now 0 states in the US where a minimum wage job is enough to afford a 2-bedroom apartment.
The reason that I have 6 jobs in LA is because I can't find a job that will give me 40 hours a week, because then they would have to pay me health insurance and benefits.
Is anyone else completely sick and tired of living in America?
I'd say $20 an hour is pretty low for the majority of people in the United States.
Emotional, spiritual, and physical violence of having to work near constantly just to be able to stay in survival mode. What that does to a person, it's violent.
In 2026, millions of Americans are waking up every morning and going to work, not with the hope of building a better life, but with the quiet anxiety of knowing that no matter how many hours they put in, how responsible they are, or how carefully they budget, they are still falling further behind in a country that continues to insist the economy is strong and the job market is healthy. This is not a story about people who refuse to work or who made poor decisions, but about a growing group of workers who are doing exactly what society asks of them and discovering that it is no longer enough. As full-time jobs fail to cover rent, groceries, healthcare, transportation, and basic emergencies, turning employment into a daily struggle rather than a source of stability. What makes this moment so unsettling is that this crisis is unfolding quietly, without dramatic headlines or official warnings, while millions of Americans blame themselves for a problem that is structural, systemic, and deeply embedded in how wages, housing, and labor markets now function, and as this realization slowly spreads, it is changing how people think about work, success, and the future. This video is about the working poor in America, about low wages in a high-cost economy, and about why the idea that work leads to security is breaking down in real time, leaving an entire generation exhausted, anxious, and uncertain about what comes next. In 2026, the central problem facing millions of Americans is not the absence of work, but the collapse of wage value in an economy where the cost of living has increased faster than income for years, creating a situation in which full-time employment no longer guarantees the ability to pay rent, cover medical expenses, afford groceries, or handle even minor financial emergencies without falling into debt. Wages across large segments of the labor market have remained stagnant, while housing, food, healthcare, transportation, and insurance costs have steadily climbed, forcing workers to spend nearly all of their income on survival alone, leaving nothing for savings, long-term planning, or upward mobility. And as this imbalance becomes permanent rather than temporary, it transforms work from a path toward stability into a source of constant financial stress. This is not limited to low-skill or entry-level jobs, but increasingly affects teachers, healthcare workers, office employees, logistics workers, and other essential roles that society depends on, revealing an economy where productivity is demanded but security is no longer offered in return.
There is now 0 states in the US where a minimum wage job is enough to afford a 2-bedroom apartment. Now, whoa, before you go, well, don't work a minimum wage job, go find a better paying job. The whole reason a minimum wage was created was to prevent worker exploitation. The goal was to ensure that even the lowest paid workers could afford basic necessities. The real problem is that it's not even just the minimum wage. Even if you make the average salary in the United States $66,000 a year, you can still barely get by because the average annual expenses in 2023 was almost $80,000 a year. And we know that in the past 2 years, shit has hit the fan. To have the same purchasing power as the boomers did in the 1970s, a minimum wage job would have to be close to $60 an hour. A minimum wage job. Why don't you go find a $60 an hour job? Let me know how that goes. But no, we shouldn't tax the ultra wealthy and the mega corporations who are creating this crisis, because we should just wait for the money to trickle down into our mouths and all over our body. It's gonna trickle down.
How is it legal that I'm basically making minimum wage in Pennsylvania? It's $7.25, by the way. I worked 2 days at minimum wage, $7.25, 12 hours, and I made $76 post-tax. And I worked then, my next paycheck, making $5 an hour plus 20% of the tip pool, made $89 in a 2-week period. $89. Do you think I can afford food with that money? I couldn't even afford the products that are in my shower. But from now on, I'm gonna be a full-time content creator. If any brands want to work with me, please hit my DMs as long as you're paying more than $89.
So we in America can't even afford to live anymore. This 1976 cost of living, the average income was $16,000. A home was $43,000. New car, $5,000. Rent, $220 per month. Just look at these prices. So based on that, they're saying that the average income should be what, $84,000 now? So that means that with $240,000, I should be able to buy a new house. It's not possible. And also the average income is not $84,000. You know, most people are making way less than that. $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, but it's not $84,000. And based on this, I should be able to get a new car that's what? It says it would be like $5,000. So if my income is $80,000, a new car should be like $20,000, which most of the time they also are not. I mean, unless you're getting a value car. Also, if we're looking at this, your rent for the year should only be 15% of $6,000, which would be about $2,000 something dollars, which our rent is not 15% per year. It's like 30 or 40% per month. So yeah, something is definitely wrong. New car, nothing is adding up. So basically, we're not making enough to support what things cost, and it's a horrible thing.
I'm poor. I've been poor my entire life, 23 going on 24, and I'm broke every single week. I get paid weekly. At the end of the week, I got like $50 to my name. All I'm doing is paying my bills and then paying off my debt. I was an idiot in college, don't even use my degree, but I have a specialized job. I'm making decent money, and I have nothing left over at the end of each week. I work 50 hours a week. I'm just tired of being poor. So if you know any side hustles, second jobs, that would be great. I'm not trying to drive all the time, so don't tell me to DoorDash.
Do y'all know that the average American doesn't have any money left over, if but maybe $200 or $300 left after they get paid every 2 weeks or every month? Did y'all know that? I'm sorry, but that I literally feel like drive me to voluntary homelessness. I would volunteer to be homeless. There's no way they'd have me out here working for anybody and I can't live life after I pay bills. Y'all can have these bills back. Take the car, take the crib. You can have it. Listen, I'm going to be homeless on the streets before I dare. Because, see, the way I'm set up, my Father which art in heaven would never have that be my portion. That's not my portion. There's no way that paying bills and not having any money left over to really exist, that's not my portion. That's not my portion. And I feel like if that doesn't motivate you and inspire you to get out here and go make some money, make more money. See, the problem with us nowadays is not that we don't know how to make money. It's just that we need to make more money. Find ways to make more money. Stop making excuses. You need to be trying to be the president of the United States before you stop trying to find a new job. Listen, if you got to switch jobs every single 2 weeks, then that's what you got to do. May the best salary win. Thank you.
Welcome to my take at 73. Something is happening in America. Something quiet, but enormous. Millions of people are working harder than ever, yet falling further behind. We were taught that if you work full time, you should be able to survive, pay your bills, feed your family, and live a stable life. But today, a full-time job doesn't guarantee any of that. In city after city, rents explode, groceries cost more, insurance premiums rise, and wages stay stuck in place. Let me tell you a simple truth most leaders are afraid to say. We don't have a worker shortage. We have a living wage shortage. Millions of Americans work 2 jobs, even 3, not because they're lazy, but because their employers refuse to pay enough to live on. And don't forget the newest strategy. Cut workers to part-time, just short of the hours needed to qualify for health insurance or retirement benefits, short of the protections that make life bearable. The result? People are working harder, but living worse. You've heard the phrase working poor, but here's the new phase, full-time poor. People working 40, 50, 60 hours a week and still standing in line at food pantries, still choosing between doctor's bills and electricity, still wondering why they are exhausted, broke, and blamed for their own struggles. And who benefits from this? Corporations that use low wages to boost profits. Boards who reward executives while cutting hours for staff. Companies who expect loyalty from workers but refuse to give loyalty back. In America today, the people who hold this country together are falling through the cracks. Economic inequality isn't an accident. It is a design, one that's been built quietly, piece by piece, while most people were too busy working to notice. If this resonates with you, follow me for part 2, where I reveal the consequences of this crisis and why a nation with record corporate profits should never have workers living in silent desperation. Remember the 3 S's. Stay informed, share information, and speak up. Thank you for watching, and comment your feelings, like and share, because wisdom isn't loud, it is honest.
In 2026, the phrase working poor no longer describes a small or marginal group in the United States, but instead defines a growing portion of the workforce that is fully employed, often working long hours or multiple jobs, yet living in a constant state of financial vulnerability, where stability is fragile and dependent on circumstances that are largely outside individual control. For millions of Americans, employment does not create security but merely delays crisis, as paychecks are consumed almost immediately by rent, utilities, transportation, healthcare premiums, insurance, and groceries, leaving little to nothing for savings, debt reduction, or emergency expenses. And when any unexpected cost appears, whether it is a medical bill, car repair, or rent increase, the entire financial structure collapses with alarming speed. This condition forces people to live in a constant state of calculation and restraint, carefully monitoring every purchase, postponing medical care, avoiding necessary expenses, and making decisions not based on long-term well-being but on immediate survival, which over time reshapes behavior, priorities, and mental health in profound ways. What makes this especially damaging is that many of those affected are not new to the workforce or lacking skills, but are experienced, educated, and responsible workers who once believed they were building towards stability, only to find themselves stuck in a system where upward movement has been replaced by stagnation and where effort no longer leads to improvement but simply prevents collapse. As wages fail to keep pace with the cost of living, a growing number of Americans have responded by working longer hours, taking second or third jobs, and engaging in gig or freelance labor in an attempt to compensate for declining purchasing power. But instead of restoring stability, this increased effort has often deepened exhaustion without providing meaningful financial relief. Working days extend into nights, weekends disappear, and rest becomes a luxury. Yet even with this intensified workload, many households remain trapped in the same financial position because additional income is absorbed immediately by rising expenses, higher rents, healthcare costs, and debt obligations, reinforcing the reality that effort alone can no longer overcome structural imbalance. This constant overwork leaves little time for recovery, relationships, or personal growth. And as exhaustion accumulates, physical and mental health suffer. increasing the risk of burnout, illness, and long-term instability, creating a cycle where people work more precisely as their capacity to work declines. Rather than being a path to progress, increased labor has become a survival mechanism, masking deeper failures in wage structures and labor policy while placing the burden of adjustment entirely on individuals.
I'd say $20 an hour is pretty low for the majority of people in the United States. Like, let's actually think about it. I don't know anywhere in California that you can actually survive on $20 an hour, let alone save money. And California is like the 8th largest economy in the world. It has the lion's share of the population here. And I think that goes for pretty much all of the West Coast. On the East Coast, think about the Northeast and even the suburban areas. Those are pretty expensive to live in. So to me, that only leaves areas like the South and the Midwest, which aren't that heavily populated. So again, for the majority of people in the United States, this would be a pretty low wage. But I'm curious, what exactly are you guys spending on rent, gas, and food that you can afford to live comfortably on $20 an hour?
Our family of 4 lives comfortably off of $1,500 a month. It's not about lowering your standards. It's about choosing countries where your money can stretch beyond paycheck on Friday at 12 o'clock to paycheck gone at 12:01 on Friday.
Something the average middle-class American does not understand is how incredibly violent poverty is. I'm talking about the emotional, spiritual, and physical violence of having to work near constantly just to be able to stay in survival mode. What that does to a person, it's violent.
So I saw a post the other day that said Houston is now one of the poorest cities in America. And at first glance, I ain't gonna lie, it definitely made sense. Because the job market here is fucked up. Let's just be real. You can literally work full time and still be motherfucking broke. The average job does not pay enough to cover rent, groceries, bills, and a damn emergency. When you actually compare the cost of living to what these jobs pay, it just don't add up. They're literally asking people to survive on math that doesn't make sense. But on the flip side, here's what people don't talk about. Houston is one of the most entrepreneur-friendly cities in the country. This city is flooded with opportunity if you know how to play the game. Low startup costs, massive industries, tech, real estate, oil. Doors are literally wide open if you have resources and connections. And obviously, strategy. That's why you'll see broke neighborhoods just a few blocks away from billion-dollar developments. Houston is not poor. The people are just underpaid. The system is set up to keep workers hustling just to get paid. Pennies on a dollar. While entrepreneurs, investors, and resourceful people thrive. If you're dependent on a paycheck in Houston, you are stuck in a cycle that was not meant for you to thrive in. But if you learn how to fix your credit, start a business, invest in real estate, or just invest in something, the city can literally reward you overnight. So, yeah, the photo was right, but it was also wrong. Houston is one of the poorest cities if you do measure it by wages and jobs. But Houston is one of the richest cities if you measure it by opportunities and entrepreneurship. The difference is resources and mindset.
65% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. 65% of Americans do not even have $1,000 for an emergency fund. More than that are 2 paychecks away from homelessness. The states struggling right now the most, the people in the states, the top 2 are both red states. Number 1 is Texas. The people there are struggling financially. The second state is Florida, another red state. The people are struggling. What do you think is going to happen when they lose their job in a couple weeks? They can't afford groceries. They can't pay their car payment. They can't pay their light bill. They're going to be up in arms. You and I know, because we're smart, know that it's going to be the regular average Joe that is going to be screaming in the streets, screaming because of our government. Just remember, Republicans did that. Trump supporters did that.
In 2 months, it's going to become completely unaffordable to live in the United States. And I'm not talking about luxury lifestyle. I'm talking about basic middle class needs. I run a relocation business out of Costa Rica. I asked my clients, who are a couple from Bushwick, Brooklyn, why they were thinking of moving abroad. They sent me their monthly budget spreadsheet. So combined, they make $120,000 a year. And from that, they get to bring home about $7,400 a month after taxes. Their rent is $3,100 a month. And their health insurance is about to skyrocket to $1,750. They budget about $1,000 a month for groceries. Their utilities, internet, cell phones, and MetroCard are another $1,300 or so. So at the end of the month, this leaves them with about $250. And that doesn't include any unexpected expenses or the hope for investments or the hope for a savings account. So what they said to me is that this is what running in place feels like. And the reason that they want to move abroad is because they actually want to move forward with their lives.
Why do I have 5 jobs in LA? I actually have 6 because I just got a new job this week. The reason that I have 6 jobs in LA is because I can't find a job that will give me 40 hours a week, because then they would have to pay me health insurance and benefits. So that's the simplest answer, is I can't find anywhere that will hire me full time. So what are all of my jobs? I work at 4 different catering companies where I serve and bartend at private events and screenings and all sorts of stuff like that. Then I do valet. And then a couple months ago, I got hired at a hotel to serve and bartend. That job I thought was going to be like life-changing, that I would get the hours that I needed and that I would make enough money that I could kind of have my other jobs as like here and there kind of jobs. But turns out that's actually not the case at all, and the tips are horrible. And yeah, even though it's in Beverly Hills, it's not what I thought it was going to be. I've had a lot of job interviews the last few months. Again, a lot of people don't want to give you full time, and a lot of people want you to quit your jobs that you already have to work part-time for them, which I'm not going to do. Some weeks I work 40 hours, some weeks I work more than 40 hours, and some weeks I work less than 40 hours. So none of my jobs are really, it's not all averaging out to be 40 hours a week, I don't think. And also in the summer, it gets really, really slow with my catering jobs. So this summer I actually was on unemployment for like a month. And then I make a little bit of money off TikTok, usually like $100 a month, sometimes more, sometimes less. But and then I'm an actor, so sometimes I get paid for my roles that I book. And a lot of places in LA won't hire you if you're an actor because they don't want you taking time off to work your acting jobs. So I've had problems with that. Also, finding a really nice serving job is really, really hard in LA because, for one, it's hard to get those interviews. You pretty much just have to know somebody to even get an interview. And for 2, a lot of people who have the really nice serving jobs in LA don't leave them because they make a ton of money. So finding a really, really nice restaurant to work at in LA is really, really hard. I haven't not found a full-time job that's really, really good and pays well because for lack of trying. So yeah. That's why I have 6 jobs in LA. This year, I think that I made more than $24,000 a year. I hope, because I've been working a lot this year, besides the summer. But yeah, we'll see. But last year and the year before, that's how much I made. So if you guys know anywhere really nice in LA that's hiring, please let me know. If you're a business owner and you're seeing this video, hello, I have lots of skills. Please hire me. And if you were wondering why I'm eating filming this video, it's because I have to leave for work.
Is anyone else completely sick and tired of living in America where you're expected to work your entire life? Like, we are not here to work. Our jobs are not our lives. Our jobs are not our purpose. Like, everyone asks me, like, what's your job? What are you doing with your life? Like, I'm just trying to save enough and get passive income so I can go travel the world and start my life. Like, everyone thinks their purpose is to work. Like, you get done with high school, then you go to college for 4 years, then you're $30,000 in debt, and then you're trying to find a job just so you can pay off that debt over the next 3 years. And then what? Then you're making enough money just to pay your mortgage and afford groceries and then pay for kids. And then before you know it, you're 60 and you're retiring and your body hurts because of your job and you didn't do anything that you wanted to do. And that's our life. That's what you're expected to do. And if you break out of that, then people are going to judge you and think you're weird or you're crazy or you're a hippie. I'm so sick of it. America needs to make a change. Something needs to change because people are not happy here. People are not living their dreams. People are not living their life. They are working. They think that their work is their life. It is not that way.
Living in a state of ongoing financial precarity has consequences that extend far beyond bank accounts, as constant stress, uncertainty, and fear gradually reshape how people see themselves, their future, and their place in society, often leading to anxiety, depression, and a pervasive sense of inadequacy. Many Americans internalize this instability, believing that their struggle reflects personal failure rather than systemic design. And this belief is reinforced by cultural narratives that equate success with discipline and failure with laziness, even as structural conditions make stability increasingly unattainable for large segments of the population. Over time, this psychological burden erodes confidence and motivation, making it difficult to plan for the future, pursue long-term goals, or take risks that might lead to improvement as people become focused on avoiding loss rather than achieving growth. The emotional weight of this condition is rarely acknowledged in economic discussions, yet it shapes daily life for millions, influencing relationships, mental health, and overall quality of life. Despite clear evidence of structural imbalance, the dominant response to working poverty continues to focus on individual responsibility. Encouraging people to budget better, work harder, reskill, or adapt, while avoiding meaningful discussion of wage stagnation, rising living costs, and weakened labor protections. This framing allows institutions and policymakers to deflect accountability, presenting widespread hardship as a collection of personal shortcomings rather than the predictable outcome of economic design, and in doing so, it isolates individuals, discourages collective action, and delays systemic reform. By placing the burden of survival entirely on workers, the system normalizes instability and treats insecurity as an acceptable condition, even as it undermines long-term social cohesion and economic resilience. The reality facing millions of Americans in 2026 is that work no longer provides a reliable path to stability, dignity, or progress, not because people have stopped contributing, but because the economic structures governing wages, housing, and labor no longer aligned with the cost of living. Until these structural imbalances are addressed, working poverty will remain a defining feature of American life, and individual effort, no matter how disciplined or persistent, will continue to fall short of providing the security that work once promised. This crisis is not personal, and it is not invisible. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.